The Torah was the idea in the mind of God at the time of creation. So it's a translation of some of the basic ideas of Judaism into a Neoplatonic or Platonic development, and then representing it with the key ideas of Judaism. So it's a very fun piece of work. Yeah.
Because the idea of the Stoic give and take is exactly what Maccabee expresses.
Maccabees does express that. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, to go back to your question, yes, that's quite right. Yeah. Yeah, but that's not Ben-Sir or Aristobulus.
It's not.
No, they're Platonic, and therefore they take a different approach, more lofty, not into rhetoric as such.
How about the beginning of John? The very first sentence of John.
Anarche, Logos, yeah. In the beginning was the Word.
Yeah, which type of thought is that?
I'll give you a quick view of it, but I hope it's, you have to do it yourself, but here, you see, what's called the Johannine Gospel, or the first 22 lines of John, he is said to be the gospel of light, but if you look at the opening lines of John, you'll discover, if you read it carefully, that the light that guideth all men is belief. That's the light. John has an interesting problem. You see, in the other Gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, there's the transfiguration scene. The transfiguration scene is when Jesus goes up to the mountain, and there's a divine luminosity that breaks through and surrounds Jesus, and out of that luminosity emerges Moses and Elijah. They have a dialogue. And by the way, if you'd like to have a nice Christian Zen question, I think the fun question would be, fun on the highest level, can you tell us what Moses and Elijah said to Jesus in that dialogue? That's the one I would, that's the one I said. This, by the way, is exactly, if you take the Gospel of Mark, right, which has 667 verses, and you cut it down the middle, that transfiguration scene is right in the middle. It's the apex of the development. John ignores that transfiguration scene completely. He takes the idea of light and turns it into belief and faith. The idea of the transfiguration of light, this is called the presence of God. And that's why in Moses, during that period where Moses tells the people to build a tabernacle, that's to house the presence of God. And in Hebrew, that's a Shekinah. That's the divine presence of God, and that's the female divinity. That's God as a divine being, is the Shekinah, and that's what the tabernacle is meant to signify. Therefore, when Jesus comes down from the mountain and he meets Peter, Peter says, excuse me, I'd like to build 3 tabernacles. Therefore, if there were a Christian who wanted to represent these Gospels, I think they should include in their service 3 tabernacles, which would be the spirit of Jesus, the spirit of Moses, and the spirit of Elijah. Because that's what this represents. In any case, John, when he deals with the whole problem of light, translates this. You see, this word is glory. That's the word they use to describe that. And glory in Greek is doxa. Right? Another word for doxa is of course, opinion, but it's also an image of. This is the presence of God, and therefore it can be said to be a doxa, presence of God. Now, what John does is he takes the idea of light and talks about glory, not in terms of the presence of God this way, but in terms of believing in Jesus. Therefore, he has no need for the transfiguration scene. He drops it out of the Gospels, and therefore he has a totally different vision of what it is to be a Christian. That means he doesn't want to continue this light the presence of light and the significance of light. He wants to drop it down into the realm of belief. Now, that's a major step. That's a a totally major step, because then it's looking for man's spirituality to emerge out of the realm of belief, out of doxa. And that's clearly in opposition to a Hellenic view, which is you must get out of the realm of belief and into the intelligible, because belief is doxa, is opinion. And, so if you look at the first 22 lines of it, I think you'll find that this can be said. And if you can't find it, come back and let's look at it together. I may be wrong, but I've looked at it a couple of times, and I think it's there. Yeah. Please.
According to the scenario we've been looking at tonight, the 12 lines at the end, which include the passion, crucifixion.
No. It's post-resurrection. It's after the cave, experience of the cave.
Okay, after the
Yeah,
cave.
yeah.
Okay, after the cave then. How was that added? Where did that come from?
Well, there is some discussion in the 4th century by some that's in print by some Christian thinkers, and they argue against it. So we know it must have occurred in that date. I mean, this is well established. I'm not saying anything that's recent literature or recent scholarship. It's well accepted by nearly all scholars that the last 12 lines have been added, that the last 12 lines were added somewhere around the 4th century, late 4th century, that there was some opposition to adding it. That's well established.
Do they know who added them?
There is a theory about who added it, and I forgot the guy's name, but I'll give it to you the next time I see you. Yeah, it's established. There's an argument that is likelihood, an argument of likelihood, that suggests it must have occurred around that period of time in a certain town during a certain argument. And I can give you that next time I see you.
There's a lot of weighty stuff to just tap on to the end.
Oh yes.
I mean.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
This is very crucial. I mean, there's those whole religions and societies set up on
Oh, yeah.
this last.
Because Mark, you see, was copied, 90% of Mark was copied by Matthew. And so therefore, if it wasn't in Mark, Matthew, who came another 15 years after, he adds to the post-resurrection scenes, but it was never in Mark. Therefore, it came in the 2nd century.
You know, there's very specific accounts of Christ appearing and Thomas putting his hand in his side, and all this dialogue and stuff. That's a lot of stuff.
He never put the hand in, by the way. That's legend. It's not in the book. It's not in the book. If you go back and take a look at it. But in any case, if you look at each of the appearances of Jesus that are recorded, and the best way to study it is to use what's called a synopsis of the 4 Gospels. So there you can open it up and you can compare the different Gospels right along as you read it, and in that way you can make quick comparisons. And therefore, if you're looking for an idea such as the post-resurrection scenes, you can easily find them grouped together and you can take a look. If you were to ask the question of whether or not it takes multiple observers to assert the existence of someone, if you look at just standard rules for reporting, you'll find that each one of the appearances is lacking, that there's a mystery about it, especially in Luke. Right? But you can see yourself. If you have any question about it, I'll be glad to go over it with you myself. As an example, when Jesus